Trev's Hockey Show. I'm the Trev. It's too sweet. Anyway, continuing with retired numbers. Yeah, we're still going. Trust me. We're only getting better from here. Today, we're going to talk about the third number retired by the Los Angeles Kings. And really, today's topic was not only one of the three members of the Triple Crown line, even though only two of them have their number retired. First one's right here. He's also at one point the team leader in games played, as well as a 1,000 point scorer and a team captain. But above all else, the main sticking point from this is today's subject is definitely a success story out of a late draft pick. Now, today, we're going to talk about the number 18, which was born in Los Angeles by Dave Taylor. So let's talk about it. All right, so Dave Taylor's 17-year career, all with the Los Angeles Kings, began on June 3rd, 1975, when Taylor was drafted 210th overall in the 1975 NHL Amateur Draft. Now, 210th at that time was the 15th round. So, yeah, very late draft pick. Now, coincidentally, he was also drafted 175th overall by the Houston Aeros of the World Hockey Association in their amateur draft 2 months prior. Now, 175th for the WHA draft was the 9th round. Now, despite the latter being the World Hockey Association would probably been his better bet to getting in, playing at his age range, professionally anyway, cooler heads prevailed, and he decided to go play college hockey for the next 2 years before debuting with the LA Kings in the 1977-78 season. Smart man. He played his first game on October 12th, got his first NHL assist on October 15th, and scored his first NHL goal on October 22nd, 1977 against the Boston Bruins. And he also scored his first of 8 regular season hat tricks on January 14th, 1978 against the Atlanta Flames. Now, all told, Taylor would finish his rookie campaign with 43 points in 64 games. Not a bad first-year point total at all. And the Kings would finish third in the Norris Division to advance to the playoffs, but this day would not last very long, as the Kings would lose to the Toronto Maple Leafs in 2 games, being horribly outscored 11-3 in the preliminary round, with Taylor going pointless. So, other than the playoff results, not really a bad first year at all. Now, the 1978-79 season would be a much more prosperous year, being put together with Marcel Dion, and later in the season with Charlie Simmer, which would see the beginnings of the Triple Crown line, who would eventually set some scoring marks later. As such, Taylor would end up finishing the season with 91 points, a jump of almost 50 points from his rookie campaign in 78 games. Now, those 91 points were good for second in team scoring, but more importantly, they were good for 9th amongst NHL scoring leaders. So, that's not bad at all. Now, the Kings would make the playoffs for the second straight year, and the visit was, much like the previous season, short, as the Kings would again lose in 2 games in the preliminary round, this time to the eventual Stanley Cup finalists in the New York Rangers, with Taylor once again going pointless. Now, the 1979-80 season, that would see the Triple Crown line go into full effect for the LA Kings, with 2 of the 3 players, obviously not Taylor, finishing in the top 10 in league scoring. Now, Taylor would continue his over a point per game average, though. Even though he didn't finish in the top 10, he still finished with 90 points in 61 games. So, not bad at all, with the Kings finishing second in the Norris Division, only 33 points behind the Montreal Canadiens. And the playoff run, which would eventually see Taylor record his first 3 playoff points, would only last 4 games instead of the 2 from the previous 2 seasons, as the Kings would be eliminated by the eventual Stanley Cup champs in the New York Islanders. Them's the breaks, right? Especially when the team's on the dynasty. The 1980-81 season would ultimately be a great year for Taylor and an even better year for the Triple Crown line. It's also worth noting in this season that Taylor would play in his first of 4 NHL All-Star games, and would see the Triple Crown line become the first line in NHL history to have all 3 players score over 100 points, with Marcel Dion scoring 135 points, Charlie Simmer scoring 105 points, and Dave Taylor setting career highs in goals with 47 and points with 112 in 72 games. Now, all three members of that line would finish in the top 10 in league scoring, with Dion finishing second, Simmer finishing seventh, and Taylor finishing in fifth. Now, that's not bad at all. The Kings would again qualify for the playoffs and once again have a short stay, being eliminated in 4 games by the New York Rangers, with Taylor going a point per game in the playoffs. Now, at the conclusion of this season, Taylor will be named to the NHL's second NHL All-Star team. So that's not a bad thing to have on your resume either. The 1981-82 season saw the NHL go through a proper, not quite geographical realignment. And I say proper because at this time, the divisions were a complete mess. You had teams that played in the West in an Eastern division with teams in the East that were just totally dumb. It was a mess. But with this, it took the Kings out of the shadow of the Montreal Canadiens in the Norris division and instead put them in the shadow of the Edmonton Oilers in the Smythe division. But despite this realignment, it didn't really seem to faze Taylor at all, as he would almost replicate his totals from last season, finishing with 106 points in 78 games, including a career-best 67 assists. Now, his 106 points was not only second in team scoring, but had Taylor tied for 9th in league scoring. So the third time he's finished in the top 10. Now, the Kings would advance to the playoffs with a losing record and had the quote-unquote honor of playing the Oilers in the Smythe Division semifinals. Forewarning here, the Oilers are very present in this story. Not just for this playoff year, but this entire video. The Oilers are all over this one. Now, despite being the obvious underdogs, the Kings managed to find the right ways to outscore the Oilers, even with the miracle on Manchester in Game 3, and eliminated the Oilers in 5 games, before eventually being eliminated by the eventual Stanley Cup finalists in the Vancouver Canucks in 5 games of their own. Taylor would put up career bests in all categories in the playoffs with 4 goals and 6 assists in 10 games. Still going point per game in the playoffs. That's something. Now, the 1982-83 season would be a huge regression for the Los Angeles Kings, as they finished the season last in the Smythe Division, making this season the first time Dave Taylor wouldn't play in the playoffs in his career. But to be fair, in his defense, Taylor was only limited to 46 games this season, adding 37 points in the process. So, a shorter season this time around. The 1983-84 season would be pretty much more of the same. And this will also be the last season for the Triple Crown line as a trio, as Simmer would be traded before the next NHL season. And again, Taylor was limited in games played, only playing in 63 of them, adding 69 points in the process. Nice. The 1984-85 season would see the Kings get back to playing like a playoff contending team, again finishing 4th in the Smythe Division, with Taylor adding 92 points in 79 games. So they qualified for the playoffs, and lucky them, met the Oilers in the first round. Now, unlike the Oilers that the Kings played 3 years ago, there would be no miracle in Manchester this year, with the Kings losing the Smythe Division semifinals to the eventual Stanley Cup champs, with Taylor adding 4 points in those 3 games. Getting back there, but the result's the same. But for all the good things, you got to come back to the bad things. And the 1985-86 season would be another regression of sorts, but it wasn't all bad. I mean, Dave Taylor was named team captain, the 8th team captain in franchise history prior to the start of the season, after previous captain Terry Ruskowski made his way to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, he would hold that captaincy for 4 years. But for the season, though, Taylor would add 71 points in 76 games. So, in a season that wasn't riddled by only being able to play so many games, this is the first time he would go less than a point per game average since his rookie campaign. The 1986-87 season would be the last season the Kings and Dave Taylor would have Marcel Dion in the lineup, as the Kings were in a bad way prior to the trade deadline, and Dion requested a trade to a playoff contending team in hopes of getting his name on that Stanley Cup. Now, Taylor would also only play in 67 games this season, putting up 62 points in the process, but oddly enough for the Kings, they still qualified for the playoffs. Albeit a short stay, but they still qualified, being eliminated in 5 games, once again to the eventual Stanley Cup champs in the Edmonton Oilers, with Taylor going a point per game in those 5 games. The 1987-88 season would pretty much be a repeat of the previous season, with the Kings making the playoffs, again with a losing record, with Taylor adding 67 points in 68 games. So almost a point per game average. Almost got his way back there, but not quite. Now inside playoffs, it would again be a short stay, as the Kings would be eliminated in 5 games by the Calgary Flames, with Taylor adding 6 points. Now obviously the 1988-89 season was quite a season of change, as this would be the first full season with former division rival, now turned teammate Wayne Gretzky in the lineup. And almost automatically, the Kings had significantly improved, going from a team that would finish 4th in the Smythe division routinely for many years to climbing all the way to 2nd in the Smythe division, and a strong contender in the playoffs, with Taylor contributing 63 points in 70 games. So not bad, the totals are getting back up there. In the playoffs, the Kings would have the quote-unquote honor of playing against Gretzky's former team, again, the Edmonton Oilers, in the Smythe division semifinals. Now, despite falling 3-1 in this series, the Kings managed to find a way to come back and eliminate the Oilers in 7 games, before eventually running out of steam and being swept in 4 games by the eventual Stanley Cup champs, the Calgary Flames. So if it ain't one Alberta team, it's the other, right? Taylor had 6 points in those 11 games. The 89-90 season would see Taylor hand his captaincy to Wayne Gretzky, making Gretzky the 9th captain in team history, while Taylor wore the A for the remainder of his time with the LA Kings. And Taylor would also be a part of history in this season. On October 15th, 1989, he would get the primary assist on the goal that gave Wayne Gretzky point number 1,850, which tied him with Gordie Howe for all-time points record. Now, obviously, he broke the record that same game, but he at least got the assist on the point on the goal that got him the tie of the record. And, of all possible teams, against the Edmonton Oilers. You also see Taylor score his 8th and final regular season hat trick on January 25th, 1990, also against the Edmonton Oilers. I did say the Oilers were pretty prevalent in this story. But despite all the positiveness and the record setting, the Kings would find themselves in pretty much familiar territory, finishing 4th in the Smythe division and qualifying for the playoffs, with Taylor adding 41 points in 58 games played. Now in the playoffs, Taylor would again be a part of history, as he, along with Thomas Sandstrom and Tony Granato, would be the first 3 players on the same team to record a hat trick each in a playoff game, on the way to eliminating the defending Stanley Cup champs, the Calgary Flames, in 6 games, before being swept by the eventual Stanley Cup champs in the Edmonton Oilers, as they were on their way to the 5th Cup. Taylor would match his career high in goals with 4 to go with his 8 playoff points. Now, the 1990-91 season would see Taylor make more history, as he become the first collegiately trained player to score 1,000 NHL points, achieving this feat on February 5th, 1991. And it would also see the Kings start becoming more of a divisional threat, winning the Smythe division for the first time in team history, with Taylor adding 53 points in 73 games. And if that weren't good enough, he would also set a career high in penalty minutes with 148. Now in the playoffs, the Kings took out the Vancouver Canucks in 6 games before losing in an overtime-filled 6 games to the Edmonton Oilers, with Taylor adding 3 points in 12 games. Now at the conclusion of this season, Taylor would be awarded the Bill Masterton Memorial Trophy for dedication to hockey, more specifically his dedication to the LA Kings, as well as the King Clancy Memorial Trophy for humanitarian contributions and involvement in charity work. So, not a bad guy all the same. The 91-92 season would see Taylor hit one more milestone, becoming the first player in Los Angeles Kings history to play 1,000 games, all with the Kings. This happened on January 28th, 1992. Now, unfortunately, this would also be where Taylor's production would really start to slip, with Taylor adding only 29 points in 77 games. Now, despite all this, though, the Kings would still make a short step in the playoffs, losing in 6 games to the Edmonton Oilers, with Taylor adding only 2 points. The 1992-93 season would see Taylor play in only 48 games this season, and would also see his production slip even more, putting up 15 points. But Taylor was along for the ride that was the 1993 playoffs. The Smythe Division semifinals turned out to be a scorer's paradise, with the Kings outscoring the Calgary Flames 33-28 to eliminate them in 6 games, before eliminating the Vancouver Canucks in another 6-game high-scoring series, on the way to the Campbell Conference Finals and a series with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, each game in this series was close, with games 5 and 6 both needing overtime, leading to an even closer Game 7, which saw the Kings ride a Wayne Gretzky hat-trick to the Stanley Cup Finals for the first time in franchise history. Now, unfortunately for the Kings, though, they would run into the Montreal Canadiens. And the Canadiens at this point were on their run to Cup number 24, their first Cup since 1986 and their first Cup appearance since 1989. Now, despite coming out with a Game 1 win, the Kings were buried behind the next 3 games going to overtime, and not ending in their favor, not a one of them. The Kings would eventually lose the Stanley Cup Finals in 5 games, with Taylor adding 8 points in a career-high 22 playoff games played. Now, unfortunately for Taylor, this would be the last time he would play in the playoffs. The 1993-94 season would be Taylor's last season in the NHL, and would also see the NHL realign the divisions to a proper geographical formation, which saw the Kings now play in the Pacific Division instead of Smythe. And really, the Pacific is essentially the Smythe Division, just you're adding the Anaheim Mighty Ducks at this point. Now, being the hope for the Los Angeles Kings was to get back to the Stanley Cup Finals, they sure didn't play like it, as they managed to just get behind in losing streaks and stay there. And so, for the first time since 1986, the Los Angeles Kings would miss the playoffs, with Taylor putting up a career-low 7 points in 33 games played. Yeah, it's that bad. So, after the regular season had ended, Dave Taylor would announce his retirement as a player in the NHL, so no season 18 for number 18. But in saying all that, that was essentially the story of Dave Taylor and the number 18 with the Los Angeles Kings. So let's talk some numbers. Alright, so 1,111 games played, Dave Taylor would score 431 goals, add 638 assists for 1,069 points and 1,589 penalty minutes. Now, if we're talking playoffs, that's 92 games played with 26 goals, 33 assists, and 59 points to go with 149 penalty minutes in the playoffs. Now, he was nominated to the NHL's second All-Star team in 1981. He played in 4 NHL All-Star games in 1981, 1982, 1986, and 1994. He was awarded the Bill Masterton Memorial Trophy and the King Clancy Memorial Trophy, both in 1991. He was the first King to play 1,000 games with the team. He was the team captain for 4 years, finished in the top 10 in NHL scoring 3 separate times in 1971, 1981, and 1982. Now, upon his retirement, his 1,111 games played were a team record, which has been broken since. He's the lowest player to ever record 1,000 points and the first collegiately trained player in NHL history to record 1,000 points. So there's that. He's not yet in the Hockey Hall of Fame, but the LA Kings did retire his number on April 3rd, 1995. So, here's my opinion of the guy. Now, in terms of dedication to the team, I think Taylor has everyone beat. I mean, even in his prime, when the Kings weren't so good as a playoff team, he could have requested his way out at any time, but he didn't. He stuck with it. Even in the years they didn't make the playoffs, he stuck with the team, being part of one of the most productive lines in NHL history, getting as far as the Stanley Cup Finals and accomplishing statistical achievements along the way. Taylor was a solid foundation piece for any team. It just so happens that no one else wanted to wait 15 rounds to take the guy. So everybody's loss is LA's gain, right? But either way, a solid contributor to the team's success, especially when he was a part of that Triple Crown line. I mean, one don't finish in the top 10 in league scoring by accident. And yeah, it takes a team to get you there. It took a team to get 3 players there. And he did it 3 times. Solid defensive forward. I mean, he was not afraid to go in the corners. He was not afraid to mix up the play. He was not afraid to take the penalty if he had to. I mean, his 1,589 penalty minutes alone should tell you that. On top of that, a solid playmaker. And he knew when it was time to make that play or to mix it up. And a solid team leader, too. So, one of the better late-round draft picks to ever play, as I said in the beginning. And just so happened to be LA's luck that he was on their team. Solid player. Says another one of them Trev's hockey shows. I want to thank you for tuning in. Don't think I don't appreciate the gesture, especially if you've made it to this point. If you have made it to this point, then you've essentially sat through my entire video, to which I'm incredibly thankful for you for it. So please, feel free to give me that thumbs up. I think I've earned it. At least let me know you're here. At least let me know you're saying, hey, you're digging my stuff. I'm down for it. Trust me, that thumbs up goes a long way. If you want to, that red button that says subscribe all over it, come on, you know you want to. I know you want to. The algorithm knows you want to. It'll make you feel good. It'll make me feel good. And like I said, we're making that push to 500. We're close to 300 at this point. For everybody who's come along for the ride, thank you very much. I hope I'm keeping you entertained. I hope you're definitely digging what I'm doing. I hope you come back for more. I really do. If you want, that link in the description below, that'll take you to my Facebook page. Feel free to follow me on there. It's free. I'd love to build an audience there as well. Alright, so moving forward, as far as retired numbers are concerned, trust me, as I said at the beginning of the year, we're heading into the land of giants. And my next 5 are all giants. Well, at least 5 of the next 6 are all giants. So, you've been warned. Either way, in the meantime, in between time, be looking for Trev. Data.